More than 100 days of war, a global energy crisis, and billions of dollars in economic damage, and now a deal that could change everything. The United States and Iran have reached a landmark memorandum of understanding to end their conflict and reopen the Strait of Hormuz to all shipping. Here is the full story of how we got here, what was agreed, what was left on the table, and what comes next. To understand this deal, you have to go back to February 28, 2026. According to reports, that is when the United States and Israel launched coordinated airstrikes across Iran, targeting nuclear facilities, military infrastructure, and senior leadership. Officials cited Iran's advancing nuclear program, its ballistic missile capabilities, and its support for armed groups across the Middle East as the core reasons for the operation. It was, according to analysts, the most significant military conflict in the Persian Gulf since the 2003 Iraq War. Iran responded with hundreds of retaliatory missiles and thousands of drones directed at targets across the region, and the conflict spread into Lebanon as well, where Iran-backed forces and Israeli forces clashed heavily. Almost immediately, the economic shockwaves were felt worldwide. In one of its first and most consequential moves, Iran effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway between Iran and Oman that, before the conflict, carried roughly 20 to 25. Qatar also played a key mediating role, leveraging its established relationships with both American and Iranian officials built over years of prior diplomacy. Together, these two nations helped keep the two sides talking even when the ceasefire appeared close to collapse. By mid-June, those efforts paid off. On June 14, 2026, Pakistan's Prime Minister announced on social media that a peace deal had been reached between the United States and Iran. The statement declared what officials called the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. Iran's deputy foreign minister confirmed the agreement on state television, though officials said Iran would not begin implementing it until the formal signing took place. The United States then announced it had authorized the lifting of its naval blockade and the opening of the Strait of Hormuz to toll-free shipping. So what exactly is in this agreement? According to reports citing the Memorandum of Understanding, the deal covers several key pillars. First, a cessation of hostilities between the United States and Iran, including the fighting in Lebanon. Second, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to all international shipping, ending months of near-total blockage of one of the world's most critical energy chokepoints. Third, the lifting of the United States naval blockade of Iranian ports. And fourth, according to Britannica's reporting, some relief of sanctions on Iran and the release of some frozen Iranian assets, alongside Iran's reaffirmation of its commitment to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The deal also sets a 60-day negotiating window for the harder issues that were explicitly left unresolved. Chief among them is Iran's nuclear program. According to NPR, the fate of Iran's nuclear enrichment activities will be negotiated, but remains unresolved for now. Reports also indicate Iran wants access to billions of dollars in frozen overseas assets and the full lifting of international sanctions. On the nuclear question specifically, according to Axios, the agreement calls for both sides to negotiate over Iran's nuclear enrichment levels and the disposal of its highly enriched uranium stockpile during that 60-day window, with sanctions relief tied to compliance. According to reports, some analysts and officials in both the United States and Israel are concerned that the core nuclear questions could remain unresolved even after the 60-day talks conclude. The formal signing ceremony is scheduled for Friday, June 19, 2026 in Switzerland. According to Mediator Pakistan, pre-implementation technical discussions are taking place in the interim to lay the groundwork. Some shipping companies have already signaled they will wait until the signing is formalized before attempting to transit the strait. According to analysts at the firm Kepler, it could take roughly 2 to 3 months for vessel traffic through the waterway to return to anything close to pre-war levels. Energy consultancy Wood Mackenzie estimated that fields affected by the closure could recover to about 70% of prior production within 3 months and 90% within 6 months. Middle Eastern producers had been forced to shut in more than 10 million barrels per day of oil production since the strait closed, and according to oilprice.com, some of those fields may take months to fully restart. The immediate market reaction was dramatic. According to CNBC, oil prices tumbled nearly 6% on June 15th, with United States crude futures dropping below $80 a barrel for the first time since March. Brent futures, the international benchmark, fell around 5.5%. Global stock markets rallied sharply on the news. That is a stark reversal from earlier in the conflict, when Brent briefly topped $114 a barrel amid fears of a prolonged global energy crisis. The international response to the deal was broadly positive. The United Nations Secretary-General called the agreement, according to Al Jazeera, a critical step towards the peaceful settlement of the conflict and expressed deep appreciation for the mediating efforts of Pakistan, Qatar, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and other regional nations. Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a formal statement welcoming the memorandum and calling it an important step toward consolidating sustainable peace and promoting economic growth. European leaders from the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Italy also welcomed the deal and called for swift implementation. China, according to Al Jazeera, commended the agreement and expressed appreciation for Pakistan's mediation efforts. Israel's position was more complicated. Officials acknowledged general support for an agreement, but raised reservations about some of the terms, and reports indicated Israel was not directly involved in the negotiations themselves. Now here is the part that really matters going forward. This is not a final peace treaty. It is a memorandum of understanding, a framework agreement that buys time for the deeper, harder conversations to happen. The nuclear question, which was the original stated cause of the war, remains officially unresolved. Iran's demands for sanctions relief and the release of frozen assets remain in negotiation. The situation in Lebanon, where Israel and Hezbollah had been fighting heavily, is covered by the ceasefire declaration but remains fragile. According to reports, some hawks in both Washington and Jerusalem worry that the 60-day clock could run out without a definitive nuclear resolution, leaving the core issue that triggered the conflict still open. Watch for 3 things in the days and weeks ahead.
First, whether the formal signing in Switzerland on June 19th goes smoothly and the Strait of Hormuz physically reopens to normal traffic. Second, how quickly the nuclear talks begin and whether both sides show genuine movement on the hardest issues: enrichment limits, uranium stockpiles, and verification. Third, how Iran's internal politics shape its negotiating position, given that a new leadership is navigating an unprecedented situation with enormous domestic pressure. This is a major development in a story that has shaped global energy markets, reshaped the Middle East, and tested international diplomacy for more than 3 months. The deal signed this week, if it holds, could mark the beginning of the end of the 2026 Iran war. But it is a beginning, not an ending. Follow this channel for daily updates as this story continues to unfold.